Okay, let's dive right into this. Welcome to today's explainer. If you're looking to build a business in the UK, you've probably heard of the Innovator Founder Visa. It's basically the premier pathway right now for international entrepreneurs. But here's the catch, and it's a big one. Applications are getting rejected at record rates. Today, we're going to break down exactly why these rejections happen. We'll be looking at everything from highly subjective business plan flaws to those rigid, technical trapdoors, and most importantly, how you can strategically navigate all of it.
So, here's our roadmap for getting you through this. We're going to look at the new visa reality, passing the two gatekeepers, qualitative business plan traps, technical and procedural trapdoors, surviving the 3-year mark, and finally, post-refusal options and alternatives.
All right, let's start with Section 1, the new visa reality.
Back in April 2023, the Home Office completely shook things up. They took the old startup and innovator routes and mashed them together into one super scrutinized pathway, the Innovator Founder route. And notice that big zero? Under the old rules, you legally had to show a strict mandatory minimum investment of £50,000. Today, that universal minimum is totally gone. But yeah, you guessed it, it's a massive double-edged sword. Because that fixed threshold vanished, the qualitative scrutiny on your specific financial model has just gone through the roof. You now have to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that you have clear, sourced funding that perfectly matches the realistic requirements of your specific business plan. No more just ticking a 50K box and moving on.
Moving on to Section 2, passing the two gatekeepers. Getting your hands on this visa means you have to navigate a really strict two-boss system. Gatekeeper number 1 is the commercial endorsing body. The Home Office actually slashed the number of these active bodies down to just 3 commercial entities, plus 1 invite-only government program. And these bodies, they are strictly measuring every single business plan against 3 rigid pillars. First, innovation, meaning your product tackles a novel, totally unaddressed market need. Second, viability, proving you actually have the skills and the financial chops to pull this off. And third, scalability, showing credible potential for real job creation and growth, either nationally or internationally. And listen, you literally cannot even apply for the visa without their official endorsement letter.
And this brilliantly illustrates the built-in tension of this two-boss system. So, say the endorsing body absolutely loves your idea. They give you the green light. Awesome, right? Well, then you hand your application over to gatekeeper number 2, the Home Office caseworker. And the silent trapdoor here is that caseworkers apply what they call a genuineness test. If a caseworker just gets a feeling that you aren't a genuine founder, or maybe your intent doesn't quite match the plan on paper, they can, and absolutely will, override that commercial endorsement and refuse your visa. Which brings us to Section 3, qualitative business plan traps. So, what actually makes these gatekeepers say no? Well, the single most common subjective failure is just a sheer lack of genuine innovation. Assessors routinely toss out standard, everyday business models that have just been dressed up with fancy tech buzzwords. I mean, pitching a standard digital marketing agency and just slapping AI-powered algorithms on the cover, massive red flag. That's just a minor tweak to an existing service. A green light, on the other hand, looks like a deeply defensible, structural solution. Think something like a proprietary AI decision support tool specifically engineered for heavy industry. It has to be truly distinct, no faking it. Beyond just buzzword bingo, here are the other major qualitative traps you have to watch out for. First up, lacking primary market evidence. You can't just rely on a few Google searches. You need concrete proof of demand, like formal letters of intent or actual pilot results. Second, weak development plans. If you spend 20 pages talking about marketing and completely gloss over how you're actually going to build the product, yeah, that's a problem. Third, unrealistic financials. If your projections show these massive revenue spikes, but totally ignore basic UK costs like VAT, employer national insurance, or local rent, assessors are just going to assume you have no idea how the UK market works. And finally, poor founder market fit. If you have zero technical background, but you're pitching a highly complex software platform without a technical co-founder, you're definitely getting a refusal.
Let's shift gears to Section 4, technical and procedural trapdoors.
Okay, so even if your business plan is an absolute masterpiece, you can still get tripped up on technicalities. Let's walk through the notoriously tricky maintenance funds timeline.
You have to prove you hold at least 1,270 pounds in personal savings. Sounds easy enough, right? But it's not just about having the cash, it's all about the timeline. That exact balance must be held continuously for a strict 28-day period. If it dips to 1,269 pounds for literally a single day, boom, automatic rejection. And to make it even more complicated, that 28-day period must end no more than 31 days before the exact date you submit your visa application. It's incredibly technical, and they enforce it without mercy. So the crucial point here is your corporate structure. You absolutely must set up a distinct, independent UK entity, usually registered with Companies House, where you are an active director with actual primary control. If your UK company is completely propped up by a parent company overseas, or maybe you've set up these artificial IP licensing agreements meant to just siphon all the profits back offshore, the Home Office is going to spot that immediately. They'll flag it as a lack of genuine UK control and refuse the visa right then and there.
Just a quick note on secondary employment. The new rules actually allow you to work outside your startup, which is fantastic, but there are strings attached. The roles must be skilled, specifically at or above RQF Level 3, and they absolutely cannot conflict with your primary business. If a caseworker even suspects that your side gig is eating up all your time and basically serving as your main income, they can actually curtail your visa. So your startup has to remain the star of the show.
All right, Section 5, surviving the 3-year mark. So let's assume the best and say your visa is approved. Congratulations! But during your 3-year survival window, you're subjected to some pretty rigorous checkpoint audits. You have to pass mandatory contact point meetings with your endorsing body at the 12-month and 24-month marks. And yes, you're usually footing the bill for these. They typically run about 500 pounds a pop. The endorsing body is checking to make sure you're actively trading and hitting your milestones. But here is the biggest thing to remember. You cannot unilaterally pivot your business. If you got endorsed to build ag tech software and suddenly decide to pivot to a food delivery app just because it's easier, the Home Office will flat out reject your settlement application. Any major changes have to be formally approved first.
Now, to actually win permanent settlement, or ILR, after those 3 years, your business has to achieve some pretty strict commercial milestones. We're talking things like generating $1 million in revenue, creating 10 full-time jobs, applying for UK IP. Honestly, looking at the whole list can feel totally overwhelming. But here's the really reassuring takeaway. You actually only need to successfully hit 2 of these 7 milestones to qualify for settlement. Just 2, so you can really focus your strategy.
Finally, let's look at Section 6, post-refusal options and alternatives.
But what happens if you do hit a wall and get a refusal? Well, there's a really stark difference between your options. Now, what's really interesting about this is the temptation to just go for an administrative review because, hey, it only costs 80 pounds. But listen, an admin review is strictly for correcting a caseworker's mathematical or procedural error, like if they literally miscalculated your 28-day bank timeline. You cannot submit any new evidence. If your refusal was qualitative, meaning they just didn't think your business plan was viable or innovative enough, a cheap administrative review isn't going to fix that. You're going to have to bite the bullet, submit a completely new application, pay the full visa fee again, and bring a much stronger plan to the table.
Now, if you realize your business model just isn't ever going to pass that ultra-strict innovation test, there is a very pragmatic alternative, the self-sponsorship strategy under the skilled worker route. Basically, this involves establishing your UK company, getting a sponsor license, and then literally sponsoring yourself as a skilled employee. It's a neat workaround because you completely bypass those endorsing bodies and the innovation tests. But of course, there's a trade-off. The path to permanent settlement on this route takes 5 years instead of the accelerated 3 years you'd get on the Innovator Founder route. But for established entrepreneurs, it's a very calculated, solid decision.
And that brings us to the end of today's explainer. But before you go out there and spend thousands in fees and months in preparation, I want you to take a step back and ruthlessly audit your own idea. Ask yourself honestly, is your business truly innovative, structurally defensible, and ready for UK scale? Or is it really just a new twist on an old model? Because trust me, the gatekeepers will definitely know the difference. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.